Hello guys, and welcome to Daddy Share Space. So today I'm going to be using my Milwaukee pruners and maybe this Eagle chainsaw and hacksaw. I'm going to be putting these tools through the paces in my daily chores. So as you can see to my right on the or to my left on the right of the screen, I still have that tree to cut up and put into basically the waste bin. So to my right or your left, I have a trash can with a heavy duty trash bag set up, and I'm just going to trim this, basically trim as much of this tree as I possibly can. I'm using this bar and chain oil just to keep the tools lubricated and working properly. And as you can see to the right, you see all the little jagged branches sticking off. I find that those branches that are that thin don't really work well with the chainsaw. So I'll probably reach for my pruning shears first to try to get as much of this trim back so I can get to the bigger pieces of wood to cut them up with the chainsaw. Tasks like this, in my opinion, they kind of just represent how life is. Sometimes you're presented with a task that can look to be overwhelming, and you can sometimes feel like you don't have the tools necessary to get the job done. But slow and steady, if you just keep at it, eventually you make your way through your task. I've been in healthcare for the past, since 2010. Well, actually, I was working in healthcare before that, but I've been a registered nurse since 2010, and little by little, my skills have improved over the years. I've learned from other people. I've learned from my own mistakes. I've learned from just repetition. And as I'm using this pruner here, I'm getting a better feel for how it works. You as a viewer are getting to see it in action, to see what it's capable of, and to get an idea of how you might use it if you were to purchase it. This tool is, like, I believe it's a couple $100 at Home Depot, but I'm pretty sure if you waited, you can get it on sale. That would have been my preferred method of purchase. However, this tree fell on its own time, so I have to take care of it now. As you can see here, I'm being pretty meticulous about cutting this up, simply because I don't want to just damage all the bags by having a piece that's too big just kind of poke through the bag. So I'm kind of cutting this up, trimming it down, making it easier for me to get to the larger logs that you see there. Now, personally, I only know about this method of doing this because a part of that same tree fell a while ago, and I had to do a similar task of trimming it up and cutting it up, and this portion I did by hand the last time, and I was not looking forward to doing that again. Again, you see I have on my Milwaukee bolt helmet. As I'm using these pruner shears, I probably don't need it, and as you can see, I don't have the visor down, so it's not offering me much protection. I don't foresee any of these logs jumping up off the ground and hitting me in the head. So as you can see early in the video, I was anticipating coming out and just using the actual chainsaw, but as you can look at this pile of tree, there's a whole lot of stragglers, and basically I'd have to do, kind of pull out the bigger logs and, reaching through a lot of this brush that's on the tree. So I'm just taking it the slow and easy route, Whenever I have a task that I feel like is too big, I just basically take a deep breath and I just put my head down and focus on one thing at a time, ensuring that, obviously I'm using the electric shears here, that I'm safe and that I don't cut off a finger, but also trying to, guard my mind against the monotony of this task, and it is monotonous. But discipline, focusing on the task at hand, focusing on the fact that at one point in time, this area here that you see was completely clear, and that's the goal that I keep in my mind as I do this task in a very meticulous and tedious way. I think, there's a drawback, obviously, to the way that I approach things, because as a result, if you had someone coming to work for you and they was doing the job like this, you may possibly have a little bit more respect for the task because of the way that, they're trying to do the job in a very systematic way, and it's clearly taking time. Whereas if, let's say I owned a huge kind of like a dump truck or something like that with a lot of excess space that could basically take all of this wood all at once without me breaking it up at all, well then, I wouldn't be doing this. I would just pick it up and throw it in there. So then that job's a little bit different than what I'm doing here. When you do tasks by yourself, you have to break those tasks down into smaller elements, which can make it seem like it's going to take forever. However, I believe it builds a lot of mental discipline. It builds a lot of focus, and it's very useful when you're doing other tasks. People can be telling you that something doesn't make sense or this is foolish or whatever, but when using this pile as a representation of issues in life, when you methodically work your way through something, no one's going to be able to just come up to you and tell you that doesn't make sense or that's dumb or you shouldn't do that or I wouldn't do that. It wouldn't matter, because once I have this wood cleared away, I'm going to know what I'm capable of, and that's going to be encouragement for me to tackle other tasks that other people would not do, and or that would basically tell you that that's foolish, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't take the time to do this or do that. I'm the one gaining here, and I purchased these electric pruning shears so that basically it's minimal stress on my body. And I have to say, other than, as I said, I've got on some leather gloves there, and the trigger area is not really big. I'm not a big guy, so basically I can imagine if you were a bigger guy and you had on bigger gloves, it may be a little bit of a challenge to get your finger in there with gloves. And to me it makes sense, if you're sticking your hand in brush, that you would have gloves on to prevent injury. So that would be a minor issue that I would see with these shears. I'm thinking that it's small like this because they wanted to make it as compact as it could be, so that you could actually get into tighter spaces. But I don't have the biggest hands, and with me wearing these gloves, I felt like sometimes I had to kind of be a little bit more intentional about getting my finger in there, and to be able to activate the trigger. However, once I'm in position, and as you can see here, I'm just kind of staying in that position, it works fine. Now, is there absolutely no strain on the body? I can't say that, because any repetitive motion can cause damage to the body. And at this, after doing this over several days, I did have some soreness in my finger after doing it. So, but that's just from the repetitive motion. And it would be the same thing, like if I was using an axe to cut this off, or to cut this up. Basically, all of the muscles that work in using an axe, I'd probably be laid up somewhere because those muscles in my body don't get that kind of work on a daily basis. Now, that being said, I need to go back and get to using my Bowflex. I haven't used it in a while because, I've been, to me, it seems like I've been going from one task and responsibility to another, and that's just the way life is. You set plans or set goals, and then life, hands you a deck of cards, and you have to play the cards that you're dealt. So, I do see a lot of people in life that seem to speak things, if you will, into existence. They say, I'm going to go on a vacation, or I'm going to, get a new car, I'm going to do this, and, they're able to do it. Now, I know nothing about how they're able to do it, but in my own practical way of, seeing what I'm capable of doing, whether it be economically or physically, and, taking an honest assessment of my abilities, I've always, feel like I'm not really on the same level or same page as some other people. So maybe that's why I push myself to work so hard to try to achieve a higher level. When you have to do things like what I'm doing right here in this video, sometimes you feel like you're never going to reach your goals because this was an unexpected issue that, fell in my lap. And I know everybody has issues, but everybody deals with those issues in a different way. If I was maybe a millionaire, I would just, pay somebody to come out and do this, and I wouldn't bat an eye. However, the way that things are in life currently, I don't even think being a millionaire is necessarily a secure place to be. I mean, just think about all the professional athletes that once they finish playing, they end up going bankrupt, because they're living a higher quality of life. They're not trying to live below their means. They're not thinking about strategies and ways to continue to keep as much money in their pocket. Rather, they're, paying for this service, paying for that service, paying someone to do this and that. And, I guess we don't really take stock of the fact that, either A, I'm going to get older, or B, inflation, prices can go up. And if prices go up, will I be able to maintain those things? A lot of people, when they purchase a home, they think like, especially if you think you're getting a fixed income or fixed interest rate, you're thinking your home is going to be that price for forever. Well, in the Midwest, I used to own a home there, and I bought it before I finished college, and it was a very cheap home. It was only like $24,000, but I wasn't making a lot of money. I was just working as a nurse's assistant at that time, so my wage was super low. But anyways, I got that home, and I owned that home for probably about, I want to say like 10 years or so. And the thing is, what I noticed, because I was busy with school, and then eventually I graduated and became a registered nurse, and I started what's called travel nursing. I wasn't home as often, but I did, so I wasn't doing any kind of major repairs or upgrades or anything like that, simply because I was away from home 11 months out of the year. That's just the way it was. So I was only home for, I say 10 to 11 months out of the year. And so I wasn't doing a whole lot of renovation or repairs on that home. But over the course of the 10 years, my house taxes, which started off at around 500 or so bucks a year, after those 10 years, it went up to, just under 1,000. So, I tend to learn from things like that. So then, when I moved to California and you see a house, and the first thing you want to do is you want to look at the taxes and see how much are the taxes on this home. And then if you see that the taxes, obviously homes are so much more expensive in California than they are in, a Midwestern state. And as a result of the homes being more expensive, the taxes are going to be more expensive. And, I would see homes and the house taxes are like $5,000 a year. So when you do the math on that, let's round that up and let's just say it's $6,000. That adds $500 a month to your payment, whatever your payment is. You know, you may tell yourself, oh, I can afford, you know, a $3,000 a month payment. And so, you know, when you go to get financing for a home, and you know, you got your lender and you got your real estate agent telling you, oh yes, you could pay that $3,000 a month. Well, they're not really talking to you about whatever insurance is going to be. They're not talking to you about what taxes are going to be on a home. And so as a result, you know, before you know it, you're in over your head. You're spending way more of your income towards something like that, as opposed to, you know, buying below your means, and thus forth having a little bit of a bubble or a buffer in your own life so that you can, you know, make moves if you need to. You know, it's I don't know, it's just as I've gotten older and I understand more about how our system works here, it seems to be, you know, it seems to work in a way that if you're not educated, if you don't have experience, if you don't learn from mistakes, if you just listen to mainstream things that are said, you can really get in a lot of trouble. You know, you can end up, you know, having to do something like file bankruptcy, or you know, have some devastating financial effects simply because of the fact that you just didn't know. You know, when I purchased my home when I was in college, when I look back at it, now that home was 24,000. I want to say I put about $6,000 down, and the thing is, my payment, because my credit was terrible back then. I was, you know, a young person, and my payment was like, I want to say I had a variable interest loan. It started off at like $235 a month, right? But it was variable interest. So then that payment went up. When the interest rate went up, it went up to like 200 and I want to say 60 something dollars a month. Now that seems like nothing, but at the time when I purchased this home, I go back, I was actually actively in college, and I want to say I was making like maybe like $8 an hour or something like that at that time. And I worked for some good people, you know, at the hospital that I was working at, and they were very supportive about me continuing my education. And so I used to work a 3 to 11 shift. You know, I would go to work at 3 p.m., get off at 11 in the evening. But since I was in nursing school and I had clinicals and all these things, I talked to my manager, and they worked with me. And I was when I was in nursing school, I was working from 3 in the afternoon to 7 p.m. every day. They allowed me to adjust my schedule like that, and I would do like 5 days a week. So basically, that's 4 hours. That's 20 hours a week at $8 an hour. So when you look at that in comparison, and you take taxes and all that stuff, how, you know, how was I qualifying for even that type of mortgage? But it seems to me that's kind of like the way our system works. Our system kind of encourages us to get a little bit deeper into debt, so that it serves two purposes. Well, I think I may have mentioned in another video, I may not have, but basically if you think about, I don't know why we have the amortization calculator, and why when we buy, you know, purchase homes, why it's not a one-to-one like when you buy a car. You pay an equal amount of interest and an equal amount of principal, but with the amortization calculator, you're paying, what is it, like, well, basically you're paying very little. I can't remember right offhand what the percentage of the mortgage that you're paying, but basically you're paying mostly interest. And when you pay attention, if you pull up an amortization calculator and put in the price of a home and all of these things, and obviously this is relative to you know, how much money you put down on a home, right? But it's also in relationship to your interest rate. You could put a lot of money down, but I mean, it's also, sorry, not your interest rate. It's also relative to your credit score. So even if you put a lot of money down, if your credit score is terrible, then basically you're still going to have some, you know, a very ugly looking amortization calculator due to that interest, because the bank wants their money up front, right? And so And then it almost feels like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it almost feels like, it's this gamble that the bank plays with you that, okay, there's a high chance that they probably have some kind of a spreadsheet that says what percentage of people actually pay their homes off, when they sign a 30-year mortgage. And that number is probably pretty low. As a matter of fact, I think I Googled something similar to that at one point in time, and it ended up saying that basically, what did it say? 4 out of 10 people actually see a 30-year mortgage to the end. 4 out of 10. And what I found interesting about that is it wasn't just 4 out of 10 people actually get to the point of paying off their mortgage. It said that over half of those were retirement age. So now think about this. Out of 10 people that purchase a home, 4 of them are actually going to pay off their home. Over half, now I'm using very I like to use hasty generalizations just to kind of get a point across. But if we were using basic math, so half of 4 is 2, obviously. So if it's over half and we round up, that means 3 out of 4 people are retirement age. That's like over 62, 65 years old. Those are the people that are paying off their home, a 30-year mortgage. 1 out of 10 then is under retirement age. Using hasty generalization, math basically. 1 out of 10 people is actually purchasing a home and getting to the end. So if you use that, kind of like I don't know, like an estimation of things, it's basically like only 10% of people are making it to the end of a mortgage. Now, of course, you have people that sell their home, that move, that die, all this different thing. But regardless, if you look at that scenario and you're the banker, that means you have a 90% rate of getting that home back and being able to resell it again. And remember, like our society is based on consumerism, and so like, the more we consume, it means the higher prices go. The higher prices go means that basically we have to go more and more in debt to buy the same things, right? When I first moved to California and I was looking at an area like Sacramento, I was living down in San Francisco, Bay Area, whatever, but Sacramento, they had some, reasonably priced homes. Now they were still, like 10 times the cost that they were in like the Midwest where I came from. But now looking back, it was reasonable because now in a city like Sacramento, the homes are actually the same price as they were when I used to live in Santa Clara, which is, you're talking about damn near a dump for $400,000, which is crazy. So, I mean, just imagine how many people can afford a $400,000 house. Especially, now with the interest rates high. But, a lot of people were very excited and very happy about the interest rates when they were low. But I don't feel like people were really paying attention to the big picture. If you buy $100,000 house with a low interest rate and you end up paying $200,000 for it, you're not saving a dime. You would do better to buy that $100,000 house at a 10% interest rate, because at the end of the day, you're getting more house for your money versus, that seems to be the math of our economy. That, if you can spread the payments out longer, if you can make the payments look smaller, then you feel more empowered. The problem is, and I've been in this position in my life before, where basically if you get to the end of your credit, eventually, I don't care who you are, you're going to get to the point to where people are not going to extend you any more credit. For the individual consumer, it's not like how our government works, in the sense where basically you can increase the debt ceiling. You may be able to do that for a time, like basically you get credit card A, you max it out, and then you go apply for credit card B, and you pay off credit card A, maybe with 0% interest, or, this little song and dance type of stuff. But the core issue is, why do you have to use the credit card? Or why do you have to use the credit card and not be able to pay it off at the end of the month? But a lot of that is, it's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do type of thing. Our society is a consumeristic society. However, if you're logical and thoughtful about the situation, if our GDP is primarily about us consuming and not about us creating and building, well, then it makes sense. The society has to go in that direction in order for us to stay afloat. If you go back in time when, after, world wars and such, when, you know, America was kind of like the only game in town, then basically it's like everything kind of thrived. That's when you had, better pensions, better, you could have one person working and the other, person staying at home. It was just a different time. It's like you got more value out of your life, right? And now as it is, you can have a 2 income family and still just barely be making it because of the cost of things. Like, this is just kind of like me kind of like showing you kind of how I philosophically see things, because recognize, like, when you vote an official into office, they could say whatever. Like, for me personally, I only trust what I can see. I don't trust what people say. What people say is really irrelevant, because unfortunately, truth is not really something that is common, because people have learned over time. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. There's this movie that I watched. It was called The Invention of Lying. And in that movie, the character goes to the bank, and he didn't have any money, and he just told the bank teller that he had more money, and she would just, because in the show, the connotation is that basically nobody ever lies, so it's like, who would ever do that? So when he just said he had more money in there, basically, they just gave him more money. And he just started going around just lying to everybody about all kinds of things, and it made his quality of life better, right? Because he never had to answer for those lies in that show. Now, our society has kind of gone that way, where everybody is just saying things and doing things, and things don't actually have to add up, and people understand that, a lot of people don't have time to do their due diligence, to do their research. They're not slowing down and paying attention. They're just kind of moving forward. So people will just follow anything that anybody says. And, I tell my wife all the time, watch the waist. When you watch any kind of professional sport, football, basketball, soccer, any of these types of sports, the key is somebody, when they're juking, they're using their head, they may be using their shoulders, but their waist is stagnant. You can't, unless you're a plastic man or plastic woman, you're not going to make your waist move in a direction that it's not supposed to go in. So if you watch the waist of a person, you can understand what direction that person is going in. People are going to tell you whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because there's so many people, that have gotten ahead in life by misinforming other folks, and so, according to my Bible, it says, judge a tree by its fruit, right? Watch the waist, judge a tree by its fruit. So when you watch the waist of a person, like, someone may tell you, oh yeah, have a drink, blah, 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 but they're not drinking, right? Or, someone will be like, oh, I would do X, fill in the blank of whatever it is. Well, do they do it? And if they do it, do they do it on their own dime, or do they do it on someone else's dime? Like here, like on this, particular channel, like, you may wonder, okay, why did this guy put up a video that's over, 30 minutes long of him just cutting up a tree? Well, to me, this is like my waist. This is real life. I couldn't, I would much rather be in my shop, trying to make projects and getting better at woodworking, but I have to deal with this. I can't just let this sit here, so I have to deal with it. And, of course, as I mentioned in the previous video, I could have took this money that I used to buy this tool, which is about $200, and gave that towards someone, or gave that to someone who may have taken care of this for me. But, the reality, as I said, cost is based on need. If you need something done and you don't have a friend, excuse me, and you don't have a friend that's going to do it for you, Yeah, you have to be open to the fact of being, mistreated, if you will. And over the course of my time, I've had those experiences on plenty of occasions, and I've learned, and I've adapted, to the environment that I'm in. I remember many years ago, I had a 1995 Mazda Miata, and because I had not, my automotive skills have improved. I'm not great, but I know how to do quite a few things that I've learned over the years. But one of the things that I had never done back then, to this story that I'm referencing, is I had never changed the timing belt, or not a timing belt, the serpentine belt on the car. So I remember this was a shop down in the Bay Area, well, San Jose area, and I took my car in as a naive person. I was living in an apartment at that time too, so I wasn't, as able to do a lot of things. I would still do my like tune-ups and stuff, because that's, it's just four spark plugs in line in a Mazda Miata, so you can get away with something like that. But any major stuff, you may not necessarily get away with. And since I had no experience, and back then I was not watching YouTube, I didn't know. I learned about YouTube through my wife, but I wasn't watching YouTube, so I didn't have any idea to go and research and find out how to change a serpentine belt. So I took my vehicle to this place, and they charged me like $1,200. They charged me like $1,200 to change a serpentine belt. I've changed the serpentine belt now that I've grown on my Dodge truck multiple times. So I think the belt itself is definitely under $50. And just think about that. If everybody you go to charges you like that, and I kind of get it, because he had a shop. It's in San Jose or Santa Clara, California. That shop has a rent that needs to be paid every single month, and business is based upon the customer. If you don't get enough customers in, right, like say, if you're the beginning of the month and you're running a business, you have more of a mindset that I can make the money up on the back end. But let's say it's, the last week of the month, and nobody's coming to your business, and you still got to pay, that lease payment on that building that you're leasing. Well, now you're going to be more inclined to price gouge people, because you're concerned about your own survival. You're concerned about paying your bills. And if someone like me who is uninformed comes through the door, hey, it is what it is. You just, all you are is food at that point. And so, as I've come to learn that people are like that, I've learned to ask specific questions, right? And those are ways to be able to identify someone's waste. People are always talking. Like me, I can talk, but I usually like to talk about things that I've experienced, or that I've seen, or whatever. I don't like to embellish, or I guess that kind of makes me kind of boring, because I don't really like to get a little bit too over the top with anything. I'll joke around with my wife just to make her laugh, but other than that, I'm very practical. I'm a short guy, not a very big guy, whatever the case may be. I like to stay within my limitations, within what I can do, and kind of like as a side note, as I mentioned before, tools or augment abilities. I bought the motor hoist so that I could lift the back of my truck up to change the oil, to change the gas pump or the fuel pump. So by me buying tools, it makes a guy like myself, who doesn't run around with a pack of people, it gives me the ability to do all these things myself, right? And as long as I'm on this earth, I might as well be learning something. I might as well be growing. Why would I just sit up here and just vegetate my life away? I mean, I have my times when I watch shows. I have my times when I may play a video game or something like that, but you can't do that all day every day. And I have come to learn, and you're going to hear me harp on this over and over again on this channel. I've come to learn that the more skills you develop, the more things you understand, the cost of your life goes down. Now, there are some regulations out there that kind of prevent you from being able to get out from up under certain things, like i.e. I know one of the things, like in California, it is illegal to catch rainwater, right? And so I'm using this as a scenario for people to understand, like, there's certain things you can't push back against. Since it's illegal to catch rainwater, what that means is, if your water bill gets really high, you just have to pay it. No matter what they charge you, you just have to pay it. Because at the end of the day, the system is set up in California. It's illegal to catch rainwater. So, whereas if you hear about people that live in Arizona, that live off-grid lifestyles, they build these big shelters that have metal roofs, and they capture that rainwater, and they go through the filtration process, and they provide water for, whether it be their gardens, drinking water, all of these things. As a matter of fact, there's this item, I can't remember what its name, but it's a water purifier thing, and it comes in several sizes. The bigger sizes, they're illegal to sell. It says can't be sold in California. So you see, like, there's certain blockages of things that you can't do. But, as far as like this tree here, right? It's not illegal for me to take the chainsaw that I have and cut it up and bring it in the backyard and do what I'm doing here. Now, let's think about this. Like, maybe not everybody's familiar with this, but our economy, kind of globally, is not doing as well as it used to be. That means all kinds of business industries are being affected adversely. So let's do this hasty generalization thing. What is the chance that I'm going to go online, Google, find a decent arborist, a reasonable arborist, someone with some standards, someone who would do unto others as they would have them do unto them? They're going to come to my house. They're going to see someone like me. And they're going to say, yeah, I'll take care of all this for $200. More than likely, that's not going to happen. At least those have been the experiences that I've had. And even if you do find someone to do things at a cheaper price, when they have no connection to you, no allegiance to you, I've heard plenty of horror stories of people getting things done and not being happy with the end result, because, as they say, you get what you pay for. So, me being reasonable and rational and understanding that there is no way that I can guarantee that someone is going to do this job for me and do it for a reasonable price and basically make things, smooth for me, but also be able to make a profit for themselves, because I can't see that end goal. Like when I go into, whether it be Walmart, Target, or any places like that, the prices are set. So that means that Walmart, Target, these stores, they already are making their profit is baked into the goods. There's no coaxing or variability. The price is what it is. So I feel comfortable in a situation like that. But a lot of times when you have to get a quote on something to be done, and you don't know somebody in that industry, you may be getting taken for a ride. Is everybody like that? Of course not. But it's the same thing. If I was a professional doing a job, not everybody's going to pay me. Some people will say, yes, I will pay you. And they may not pay, because there's all kinds of different people, right? And sometimes you can run through a stretch, I think, in your life where you're meeting more people on the negative side than on the positive side. And at least in my case, I have to admit, that's kind of shaped my mindset. And it's, I don't really see it as a bad thing, in the sense that basically I am more prone to trying to figure something out on my own and doing it myself, and, calculating the prices. Like, when I bought my drywall sander, how often am I going to be, using a drywall sander like that? Well, not every day for sure. But at the same time, if I hang something on the wall or do whatever, or, you have some kind of damage like that, I can just fix it. And You know, I've said this, you'll probably hear me say it again in the future. Professionals have done those jobs so often and so much that they know the ins and the outs of how to be efficient and make the most money. And equipment has followed the professional. You know, Ryobi is not a bad, company in of itself. And if you're a homeowner and you want to just get a one-off job done, there's nothing wrong with buying a Ryobi tool. However, most professionals, we're not talking about YouTube people. Most professionals don't use Ryobi. You know, a lot of YouTube people that may use Ryobi are, probably getting sponsored, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that. Before YouTube, regular TV, like I watched the Super Bowl when it was on, and if you think about it, I saw more commercials than I've probably seen, like real commercials for regular TV that, most people that I grew up watching regular TV. YouTube didn't exist back in the day. And now, most of my viewership is YouTube. So it's kind of like, I've seen the shift in YouTube where, a lot of people get products before they're released. And that's no different than just watching regular TV, because if someone was sending me something, right, for free, then I am going to be inclined to say that the opinion is my own and it's not affected by this and that and the other. But say something bad about that company. Say it. And see if they send you anything else. Say it. And that's what I mean by watch the waste. You know what I'm saying? Watch the waste of a person. People just get so comfortable saying words that have zero weight. They don't weigh anything. Anybody can say anything. If I had a friend that was in a particular business, I'm going to always say positive things about that friend because they're my friend. It is what it is. If you're talking to it, if this is your friend and the other person is a stranger, what is your incentive to put the stranger above the friend? Now, like for me, I try to read my Bible on a daily basis, at least a verse. I used to be a lot better at that, but the reality of the matter is, it's kind of, there's a rule, they call it the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That means that if your friend, is an unscrupulous person, but they're still your friend, maybe you grew up with them or whatever, and then a third party comes up and is inquiring about your friend's business, if you're loving that person as yourself, you're not gonna throw them through that. You see what I'm saying? But I know life doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. And I guess that's why, as I said, all of these thought processes kind of funnel me into being on an island, kind of by myself in the midst of people, because, I only deal with people that are trying to do the right thing, that are trying to, like when people that just say stuff because they know, I remember there was a guy that I met, and he was like, you might as well ask because you never know what you'll get. And I'm like, that's kind of sleazy, in my opinion. Like I would not want a person like that close to me, because at the end of the day, this person is not disabled. They're not saying I'm not capable, so I ask for help. This person would be, like say you're making $50,000 a year, they're making $50,000 a year too, and they would just come across to your house and be like, hey, can I have your lawnmower? You make less money than 50, or your $50,000 annual income is decreased because you bought a lawnmower. The neighbor who makes $50,000, let's say he works in the same business as you, he makes the same amount, but he doesn't feel like it's worthwhile to buy a lawnmower. So his way of survival is to just come up to you, offer you a few pleasantries. Oh, you're such a cool guy. You're such a cool person. You're so nice, blah, blah, blah. Can I borrow your lawnmower? So then when your lawnmower breaks and you have to go back and buy another lawnmower because it's getting double the work on it, right? The other person doesn't have any problems. You know what I call that person? I'm gonna keep it real. That's a minimalist. There's a trend going through on YouTube. There's a bunch of people talking about minimalism. And the funny thing is, I never saw a video where a minimalist wasn't living in somebody's backyard, off of somebody else's property, off of something. He's like, oh, I got a friend who's got like 400 acres and they let me live here for free. That's not minimalism. That's freeloading. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Minimalism is if you don't want to buy it, you do without. You don't want a car, you walk. You know what I'm saying? If you got somebody, whether it be because they're good buddies or whatever, and they drive you everywhere and they take care of you, that is, in my mind, I know we call it minimalism, but if you're using somebody else to accomplish the same task and not doing without that thing, that's not minimalism. That's being a user, and and now I'm stand ready to see, someone show me an example of a minimalist life where someone is actually suffering. It's kind of like if you became a monk, or you went and lived in some kind of monastery or something like that, then you're clearly doing without a lot of amenities in life. But if you're still partaking in all the amenities of life, and you call yourself a minimalist or whatever the case may be, I mean, like, I don't know. Let me tell you, me and my wife have had many discussions about that, and every time she would show me a minimalist video or whatever the case may be, I would simply show. I'm like, oh, living in somebody's backyard again, or living in someone's whatever, maybe they had something handed down, like, minimalism is expensive, okay? Minimalism is like, I don't cook ever, so I buy all my meals out. You know what I'm saying? How much is that by comparison? How much is that? That's, it's not cheap. It is not cheap to be a minimalist. If anybody that tells you it is, I would say look a little bit closer. Because the key to everything, especially when you see things on TV or on YouTube, is it reproducible? Right? I have a bunch of tools that I purchased. That's not reproducible for everybody, right? It's just true. Having as a viewer, you don't know what my annual income is, right? If your annual income doesn't line up, if you didn't make some of the same choices that I made in life, then you're not going to get the same result, right? So, it's crazy, like, how a lot of people try to make it seem like you can do just what I'm doing. I don't see that as 100% true, because everybody's not dealing with the same deck of cards in life. A person that doesn't have the same level of intelligence, that doesn't have the same physical capabilities. Like for myself, I don't have the same physical capabilities as, like, say, a professional football player, professional basketball player, professional, baseball player, any kind of professional athlete. I don't have the same level of talent and skill. So, I'm not making $28 million a year. I'm out here cutting bushes up, with a $200 tool. That's the level that I'm on, and I'm okay with that. I don't envy someone that's in a different situation. I mean, if you go through your life envying someone else like that, then you're not living your own life, right? You're just going to be, there's no way. Envy ends in misery, right? So, like, what I did is I learned to just accept what I can do, and also try to steer away from people that are kind of like in the same range as you, or realm as you, that, have that philosophy that, they make the same amount of money as you, but they don't want to invest in what you've invested in to have a better quality of life for you, because they would rather just get it from you, right? Now, we're not talking about a situation, a synergistic relationship where, like, basically maybe, you loan somebody a lawnmower and they loan you back, I don't know, a paint sprayer, to paint your house. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, a person that basically, like, they going on a trip to Peru, right, with their money, and you spent your money on Ego lawn equipment to be able to take care of your lawn. And they like, oh, can you just go ahead and cut my yard, or can I just use your stuff? No, it don't work like that. You know what I'm saying? If you can't have it all, you can't have it all. I'm not going to Peru anytime soon, because, my money's tied up in maintaining, the home that I'm living in, maintaining the property, because these things don't last forever. None of it does. Houses break down, cars break down, life happens, and as a result, you have to be adaptable, and you have to come up with better strategies to figure out how to mitigate the hand that life deals you. Anyways, guys, I'm getting towards the end of this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care.